to forever. The green grass blows in the wind, dancing. It would be a much better sight with you, with me. If you hadn't met me, I'd be fine on my own, baby. Never felt so lonely than you came along. So now what should I do? I'm strong.
Welcome back to our E3 episode of Downloadable Content. Ben and Shanna are still here, and along the way we picked up a Doug.
Holy crap, where'd he come from?
A Doug draws near. Throw a Pokeball at it.
A new challenger has entered the battle.
Complete with klaxons and noise. So, all that other fun stuff. We will get to all that fun stuff. But we're going to shift gears now. We're going to go to Sony. They were the next one to go. And, of course, the very first thing I noticed, I saw the press conference after it initially aired. So I caught the rerun. And, but the very first thing I noticed before I saw the press conference was the official how to share a PS4 game video on YouTube.
That was like, wow. That was just balls right there.
Just
that was like
25-second
had to,
25-second pot shot directly at Microsoft.
and like,
You see that, Microsoft?
Oh man, it was so complicated, guys. I don't know if I could follow it.
You look at that footage and you can tell they are having such a hard time not to burst out laughing while making this video.
I think the original script for the video just called for them to stare at the camera and give them the middle finger to the Xbox logo, but they may have toned it down a little bit.
Family show. Yeah.
You gotta make it PG.
Oh, Ron, you're here too.
Yeah, I know. I've been squirreled away in the alternate universe where the Xbox One is doing well.
Oh man, what's that like?
Not that fun. Everything is like dark and gray dystopian 1984 with like helicopters flying all over. Oh wait, that's happening already. Maybe haven't left just yet.
No, that's the Patriot Act.
Actually, somebody I remember.
It's the Lolly Lule Lo.
Yeah, somebody posted a meme. Xbox One, play like it's 1984 because Big Brother is watching.
and then it was an image I shared on Facebook. During E3, it was heavily photoshopped, but it was like ownership is so last gen. So,
yeah.
But PS4, we got to finally see the console, and guess what? It's black.
Trapezoid square looking thing.
It's a black parallelogram.
The best description I've heard is it looks like an 80s VCR.
That's the Xbox One too, so I don't really know.
I was calling it a Betamax, but myself.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, guys, do we honestly care what the boxes look like?
No.
Not
We
really.
don't.
Really? Okay.
We don't.
Although I am waiting for that retro gray beast. Like, if they're going to make a retro edition that looks like the PS1.
I want one of them to do what Nintendo. Remember the very obscure and very short-lived neon orange GameCube?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would like to have another console which looks like a traffic cone.
I
Go
don't.
to Japan for that. They've got all the alternate colors for the console systems there.
Chartreuse.
I don't understand why people care what a home console looks like. I mean, I don't. It's going based on the design of every other piece of technology in the known universe. It's going to be boxy. It's going to probably be black so that it fits into your home theater system well. I mean, you're not carrying it around. It's not going to be something that's going to be, an extension of your identity, as Microsoft found out with those awful Xbox 360 faceplates. It's a box. I care a lot more about what it can do than what it looks like.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well put.
Exactly. Well done, Ben. Well done.
Thank you. I mean, am I wrong? I feel like there's no need to get upset about what, the Xbox or the PlayStation 4 does or does not look like. I didn't understand why they made a big deal about it.
All I wanted to see was if the PS4 actually existed.
Sure.
And it does. So rest assured, it does exist. It's not just a console you pull out of the ether.
Yeah, I mean, until Nintendo starts, and this is what they really should do. You remember how they used to do, like, I remember with the Game Boy Advance SP, they did a bunch of fun colors. Like they had one that was themed like an original NES, and they had
Yep.
Zelda ones, and they do this for the home console, for the handhelds. Until they start doing that, I don't really care. Just show me where the game goes. Just show me where I have to put in the disc. That's all I care about.
It's also going to release in November, but for $100 less. It's going to be $400. Or
Have they set a solid release date yet?
November.
Yeah, because
Holiday season.
Holiday season, which means right around my birthday, it's going to be released.
Yeah, because I know there was the whole thing with the Amazon pre-orders. It's still, last I checked, was still basically New Year's Eve because that's what it defaults to
That's
when they
their
don't
default,
have a set date.
yeah.
I would assume it will be out for Black Friday so that they can sell out on Black Friday
Yeah, it'll be
and cause tramplings and lots of other problems.
January 1st, 20XD6. That's the tentative
Yeah.
release date so far. One piece of news I noticed. PlayStation Plus memberships will now be required for online gaming. Which, if I don't have a PlayStation Plus membership, that's paid, I would assume.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
that's the paid one versus just the standard PSN.
I mean, and there's two ways to look at that, because Microsoft does the same thing, but Microsoft requires Xbox Live Gold, which is their paid membership, for literally everything. And when I say everything, I mean if you have a Netflix subscription, if you have an MLB TV or any other sports package subscription, you cannot use that on your Xbox without a Gold subscription, which is stupid because you're already being charged for those other memberships.
Basically, the only
Sony
thing you
will-
get for
You're
free on the
close.
Xbox. Sorry, the only thing you get for free on the Xbox is just the party chat, and that's it.
Exactly. Sony will let you use Netflix and sports packages and so on and so forth for free. So on the one hand, you could make the argument that Microsoft's is a better value because you're getting more for the same amount, but realistically, the best way to look at it, I think, is Microsoft is charging you for stuff. So if you don't want to pay for online gaming, don't pay for it.
There you
But
go.
you know, the difference is that the PlayStation doesn't become a less useful system because you're not paying for their online gaming platform.
There you go. I already mentioned they took the direct pot shot at Microsoft for their now gone DRM and used game policies.
Yeah.
But they opened their press conference by talking about the Vita, which I was amazed that still exists.
Yeah, I was like, wait, it's still around? I completely forgot that Vita was even released.
It's such a mixed bag because like the Vita hasn't taken off. I mean, people always said the PSP was a failure, and it had a decent life cycle. And I'm not writing it off just yet. I want to see. I think it's that weird gap where they're trying to find what the right titles are going to be for it.
Vita games, which, again, shocking, holy hell. Batman Arkham Origins. They're doing remasters of God of War 1 and 2, Dead Nation, Flower, and Final Fantasy X and X-2. So I'm glad they're relegating Daddy Issues Titus to the Vita. Good.
Why are they bringing 10-2 over? Nobody liked 10-2.
Well, because they can't just release 10 by itself, I guess.
It's like, bet you can't have just one.
Nope.
It should be noted that the Final Fantasy X and X2 should be the international mixed version, so you'll have like the Dark Aeons and a couple other little tidbit optional bosses too.
Can I just note that I think Sony's reached an important milestone. They've gotten to the point where they can start remixing and re-releasing stuff that's not actually all that old. They're definitely going into the Nintendo nostalgia well. Obviously, they don't have as much to dip into, but it's really nice to see that they're fully embracing just how far or how little of their own history they have, and yet they keep rehashing it.
How few IPs exist, etc., etc.
Yeah, but we're at that weird point too where you can remaster a game and it's not just remaking it, like you just give it a touch up.
Oh yes, now there's HD.
Versus versus you couldn't take something say like from the Super Nintendo generation or something like that and really remaster it. I mean, there are a couple things like when they did the Maverick Hunter X version of Mega Man X, but that's about it. Whereas this, you can take a much more fuller game and clean it up and update it, and it's not going to be as strange a thing.
Yeah, but I feel like the tendency is a lot more to just take a more recent game and HDify it than to take an older game and really redo it. I mean, there are exceptions. There was DuckTales, which is obviously going to be...
I was going to do the same thing.
Thank you. But I mean, I think it's also, part of the problem then becomes, okay, well, this is how games had to function back in 1990, whatever. Do we want to update it, or do we want to preserve it as is? There's really always that, it's when you're changing gameplay, people are going to be concerned that the game is going to play differently. So what do you, how do you deal with that? Do you let people play it the game they remember it, or do you update it so that it's a little bit more modern?
Yeah. And it's that kind of how do you keep games being accessible to people that might never have tried them before? Like, here we are a couple decades past, like, some of the Super Nintendo games now, and yeah, they're on the virtual console stuff, but, stuff like that, if you didn't grow up with it, but you still think it's something people should try, you want people to be able to play it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, PlayStation Vita, they didn't devote a whole lot of time for, because obviously the star of the show was the PS4, and so they presented a boatload of games. At least 3 times more than anything Microsoft could ever hope for. So, they started off with The Last of Us, which is out now, which I do want to get a hold of.
Same.
Puppeteer. Beyond Two Souls. That was a name I hadn't heard in a while.
That one definitely piqued my interest just because, like, it had Ellen Page and Willem Dafoe. Like, I thought that was...
there's something to that game that's sort of just off-putting and a little strange, because they keep kind of showing it, but it seems to almost be a different game every time they show it, but without actually having changed. So I'm intrigued, but I'm not, like... I'm curious to watch it, but I wouldn't say I'm super, like, interested just yet. I want to kind of see how it develops a little bit more, but there's something to it. It just seems odd.
I think they're going to go similar to the Walking Dead sort of route, and like you're going to have certain options throughout the game. You're going to pick those options, and whether that leads to good or bad decisions, you're going to have to live with those decisions.
Very, very interesting on that. Some other games, Batman Arkham Origins, which, again, that I've heard a bunch. One that piqued my interest, and shockingly, my wife's interest, is The Order 1886.
AKA Ghostbusters in 19th century London.
In Victorian London.
How could this be anything but fun?
The game is in an alternate universe where the Industrial Revolution came about as an effort to win a centuries-old war against inhuman enemies.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Seems legit.
And April saw this, and she has already said that if I get a PS4, I'm getting this game so she can watch it. She is very, very much intrigued. And I saw the trailer, and I'm like, ooh, this looks all sorts of awesome. Another Killzone game, yay.
Bust out the fanfare, woo!
Yay. Then they have Drive Club.
Vroom vroom.
The Crew as well.
Infamous Second Son. Then they showed like a 12-minute tech demo of the Dark Sorcerer.
Was that one that was like it looked like it was something that was being filmed and they kept stopping?
Yeah.
Was that the Dark Sorcerer? Yeah. What was that?
I
think that was just it's a tech demo showing the visuals of the PS4.
Is that all it was? Because I was sitting there watching it with my fiance, and we're both just like, "What the hell is this? Like, where is it going?"
I don't know if anybody noticed this, but the wizard that they showed, or the sorcerer from that game, back when the PlayStation 4 had its original unveiling back in February or whatever it was, David Cage from I forget the name of the studio, but I think they're the guys behind Beyond Two Souls. They showed off like this model head of a character, which ended up being the sorcerer from that specific trailer. It was just really meant to kind of showcase, look, this is what we can do visually with a PlayStation 4. And I'm like, okay, go make actual games, please.
Yeah. Games.
Yeah.
And then they showed Transistor, which is by Supergiant Games. They made Bastion, and I saw this game. I saw gameplay of this at PAX East, and it tells you how well a company has done when Supergiant is no longer considered indie, and they've lumped it now with the main showing.
And they've only made one game.
One game!
Yeah.
It is a studio of like 20 people, and they've made one game.
And that game took off so well that now they get front and center at Sony's press conference, and I met some of the group at Supergiant. I chatted with the composer, and I saw gameplay of this, and oh yeah, I'm looking for this game. I want to play this game. And then we get Final Fantasy Versus 13, which is now 15.
Alright, yeah, that's where I got lost. I was like, wait, is this just a continuation of 13? Like, I read about that somewhere, because I thought it was just a legitimate, like, new Final Fantasy, but, like...
No, it's 15.
No, it's 15.
Yeah, Versus 13 was originally announced back when regular 13 was announced as, like, I don't know if they were calling it a side story or just... It's Square Enix. They were just kind of being a little
It was
weird about
like
the whole
the
thing.
crystal novella of Final Fantasy 15 universe.
So, and then apparently, like, according to interviews, like, 2 years after that trailer, they were like, we should change this to Final Fantasy 15, but they just didn't want to tell anybody about that. And, like, it kept getting held up, so then they finally announced it as Final Fantasy 15 now.
Yeah,
So,
and because they wanted to make a bunch of games set in the Final Fantasy 13 world, as Ron had said, but with how poorly 13 did, yeah.
well enough for 2 sequels.
Well, yeah, hold my hand for 60 hours. So, and then finally, Kingdom Hearts 3. Finally!
Hallelujah!
Finally! After years of, we'll get to it. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we're doing...
This was the announcement that blew up my social media. Like,
yeah,
I got phone calls and texts about this.
yeah.
I feel like...
Is that they... No,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what was funny is the creator was like, we weren't actually supposed to show that yet. We're going to talk about that a lot more in September, but that's like, we weren't really ready. And I'm like, oh great, so this game's going to be out in 4 years.
No.
It'll be a PS5 title.
Yeah.
Personally thinking, this is my speculation, I think they were developing Kingdom Hearts 3 for the PS3. And it took them a while to develop it, and right when they were like, okay, I think we're about ready to announce Kingdom Hearts 3, so I came to them and said, hey, here's the hardware for the PS4, we want Kingdom Hearts 3 to be a launch title.
I don't know that I agree with that, because I think that they would have a lot more to show off if that were the case, but I think that I'm sure they were planning it for a while, but I think that let's not forget, they've had early versions of dev consoles for a while. I think this was kind of always in its current incarnation planned to be a PS4 title. But regardless, they've obviously been, it's been in somebody's head for a while, if not actually, being built.
Yeah.
So regardless, we get it. That's all I care about.
Yes,
Exactly.
thank God. Enough of these Kingdom Hearts games with the weird subtitles. 358 over 2 days.
Birth by Sleep, HD Remix.
Streamed out Dristons.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, come on. For fuck's sake. Can we just
Purple Monkey Dishwasher.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans were starting to feel that way and get vocal about it,
Come on.
Alright, enough is enough, give us the third installment already, we've been waiting.
and there you go.
Yeah.
So,
I can't wait to see what franchises they pull from.
and
It's gonna be nuts.
And Final Fantasy 15, I'm going back to that just for a second. I'm a little hesitant, given that how badly burned I was with 13. So I'm going at this with a little trepidation here.
I'm not gonna lie, I am too. I don't know, what... I don't know what it is, but Final Fantasy is starting to feel less and less like Final Fantasy. Is that? Does anyone else feel that way? Like,
I know you're definitely right there.
I mean, I don't think it always needs to be like, black mages and chocobos and and Moogles like at every turn, but I definitely feel like the more I've seen of Final Fantasy games coming out, the less they feel like Final Fantasy games. It might be time for them to do a, 9 style, kind of back to your roots sort of thing and launch off from there again, but that's just my personal opinion.
I think the biggest issue with Final Fantasy is that they're trying to keep themselves relevant, and a lot of the quote-unquote new hotness is all these shooters and action games, and so they're trying to figure out how they can update their image in that similar vein, when I feel like they should just stick to what they know best, which is making grand epic storylines, awesome music, very nice visuals, and very good gameplay. In an open world.
Yeah, the very good gameplay has evaporated more and more.
Right.
See, what's funny to me, though, is that the only reason I'm interested in 15, literally the only reason, is because it's going to be so drastically different in a lot of senses than a bunch of other games. It's a battle system much closer to the Kingdom Hearts series than to a traditional Final Fantasy battle system, which I have no interest in playing through menus. So if it's an actual... I agree that it should be named... I think it should have stuck with the Versus 13, just to show that it was like an offshoot from the main series, rather than get its own number in the series. But the only reason why I'm interested in it is because it's different. So I can totally see what you're saying, that they're shifting away from what their core used to be, but that's actually what's drawn me into the game.
And that's fine. I don't mind, tweaks and things like that to the system. I mind when the trend of the Final Fantasy series, where it was more like, okay, we're going to put all of our eggs into graphics.
It's the graphics and just the... Like, I don't even think it's the system, because every Final Fantasy pretty much would change up the system.
Yes.
Like, that's... I think as a fan, I've come to get used to that. Like, I expect every Final Fantasy to have a different game system, and that part I am always interested in. But there's just something about the world and the way that, Final Fantasy 13 looked and 15 looked. I'm not saying it always has to be a fantasy basis, because Lord knows, 7's awesome and 8 has, people hate it, people love it. I personally thought the world of 8 was interesting and different. But there's something about it that just feels like it looks like a lot of other games, but the world, or the actual world that they're creating, looks nothing like Final Fantasy.
And we'll see. We'll see what happens with this.
We'll see.
They did specifically design 15 to be, quote, a fantasy based on reality. So part of that is that they have to make it look like a real world. And actually there was some controversy in Japan, because people were saying it looked not like too real, like, Uncanny Valley, but too real, like it reminded them too much of actual things in real life. And they didn't like seeing real places that they knew of being destroyed or involved in fights or some other political, implications from things from the game. So I kind of like that aspect, that it's maybe making... I don't mind when a game makes people feel uncomfortable, because it means then it's making them think. So I not every single time, if it's just gore or violence for the sake of gore or violence, that's a little unnecessary, but I don't mind the idea that they're trying to maybe make people feel a little bit uncomfortable about their actual world.
Didn't they even mention like a couple real world places in the trailer too?
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with that. Like, if this is going to be a sort of alternate universe Earth where magic happens to exist and some of the Final Fantasy world bled over into Earth, I'm fine with that, because that sounds pretty interesting to me.
That does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we are definitely going to wait and see, and hopefully we get a good game. So,
can I just drop one more point about Kingdom Hearts?
yes.
Since Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, Disney has acquired Pixar, Marvel, and Lucas. So if you just think about some of the potentials, so if you just think about some of the potential possibilities, especially with the graphical upgrade that they're getting from going to the PS4, that leads to some intriguing ideas.
I kind of would want Wally as a party member. That'd be nice.
Toy Story. It seems like should be a world in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Oh my, that would be great, and they would like make Sora and Donald and Goofy like little plushies or something. Oh, that would be
And
so fun.
Shanna's gone chibi. That's it. It's
Shut-
over.
shut-
That's
It's
it.
over.
Here we go. Shut up and take my money.
Yep,
Yeah, pretty much.
There we go.
But yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, that's no automatic guarantee that they can use any of those characters because there's still a lot of licensing rights and other weird legal things, which is why Tarzan has only been in the first game. But it's just something to consider that Tetsuya Nomura wanted people to realize that as soon as he heard about an acquisition, the first thing he did was call his people at Disney and say, "Can I use this?" So he's very interested in bringing a lot more franchises to the series, and I think that could work out really well for everybody.
I
I
agree.
think
And
that would be great because, like, not for nothing, like, we've already seen Aladdin's world, we've already seen the Little Mermaid world, like, it's going to get to a point where those worlds are going to get a little stale. It couldn't hurt them to start bringing in some new universes. So
Yeah, exactly.
I most certainly agree, and I'm looking forward. Maybe we'll get Spider-Man in there.
Sure, why not?
Why the hell not? And I'm looking forward to see what they do, especially since now the game takes place quite a bit after 2. Sora is mature, which makes sense especially if they're going to use Haley Joel Osment again to voice him, because we no longer have pubescent voice
And
actor.
he hasn't sounded like a child since the second game. So.
Yeah. So moving on to the other games, then of course the multi-platforms: Assassin's Creed 4, NBA 2K4, Elder Scrolls Online.
I'm very curious about that, and I'm not an MMO fan.
I couldn't see a lot of this at PAX because Bethesda had a giant chunk of the expo floor. I couldn't really see what was going on because the line.
But yeah, I mean, if it is, not something where it's like World of Warcraft, all the mundane, I need to go kill 3 of these things, run around. And if it's much more like, say Skyrim, where it's a much more, you are just totally free to wander, and add the online aspect to that, that would be fantastic. Like, that is what I want in, like, an online RPG. And you hear all these, meetups for, thing, and for me personally, that has no appeal, but, like, the kind of just the giant world to explore online, and, it's like, I could encounter someone who's not just an NPC, but a real life person from anywhere. That to me is much more appealing.
That would make for an interesting game, and I really enjoy the incredibly open nature of Skyrim to begin with. So
yeah, I mean, to bring in the put on my anime hat for a moment.
Which one?
The one that doesn't look like War Turtle.
Okay.
If you think of the older series Dot Hack, or the more recent show Sword Art Online, the characters that they're in, they are much more they are just out there exploring the world. It is not a very set thing. They can you're free to explore, and that is the game I want. I want something like that, where it is much more to kind of go around, do your own thing, and you can kind of build up your own community however you want.
I agree, and so I don't play MMOs, but we'll see what promise this one has. They also showed a trailer for a Mad Max game.
that looks exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It needs Tina Turner. No. Well, we need that. And then they devoted about 4 minutes of their press conference to 8 indie games. And in order, they went Don't Starve, Mercenary Kings. Then the next one looks really silly, Octodad.
Keep in mind that was made by DePaul students in 4 weeks when they were given the PS4 hardware.
Secret Ponchos, Ray's Quests, which kind of looks like ghouls and goblins. Outlast, A new Oddworld, Oddworld New and Tasty.
How long has it been since an Oddworld title has come out? That's intriguing to me.
Stranger's Wrath, I think, was the last Oddworld title.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
new
been a while.
Oddworld title.
Right.
And the last one they showed was called Galaxy, which looked a bit like Asteroids.
That sounds like Astro.
Yeah, I was saying, aren't they advertising that as like an open world shoot 'em up?
It's kind of like Asteroids, but with it much more explosions and less Atari graphics. But they the fact that they showed off, they actually devoted some time to indie games, which tells me that Sony is going to try to go in full throttle with indie developers.
Well, like we mentioned with Supergiant getting their own segment now too, and it's one of those things that kind of nurture that talent now.
Yes, like I said, Supergiant's only made one game, and they've been hurled into the discussion of AAA game developers and things like that. It's like, wow, one game. That's all they've got. And so, on the whole, looking at the PlayStation lineup, there are enough games here for me to justify Warren getting the system at launch.
Yeah. That was the thing I was just going to bring up, is the fact that if you got in soon enough on that window and pre-ordered, Amazon could deliver a guaranteed delivery on launch day. And that to me was just nuts to think about. Don't even have to wait in line at a GameStop or something like that. That if you ordered soon enough, you could get it delivered on launch day. To me is crazy.
That was crazy because you know that places like GameStop, Walmart, Best Buy, they're only going to have about 4 in stock, and then
Because the employees have bought the other copies that they got shipped.
And then, of course, on launch day, that means you'll see news stories, about ritual muggings and things like that. But I said at the beginning, I don't usually buy a console unless there's enough of a library of games I'm interested in, and PS4 has me wanting one at launch. I won't get it at launch because the thing, $400 I don't have, and secondly, if new technology, if we all learn anything, is you never buy brand new tech on day one.
No, never do. Give it a while.
Give it a while. Let
the bugs scatter out.
Let the people who buy it at launch break it first, and then go out and get it.
Yeah, you generally want the one that's like 6 months later down the road when they've gotten all the hardware manufacturing kinks worked out.
Yeah, and so, but this is a system I certainly want.
Did we mention Destiny at all during the PS4? How that actually had live gameplay for it too, or no?
I did not actually.
I figure I'll get the system, in November, and I'll just add games I want and ask them for Christmas, and by that time, things should have been worked out. At least that's the hope.
We'll see, and as soon as PS4 went up for pre-order, within about 24 hours, Amazon sold out of its stash of pre-orders. It is, I think that whole.
I was honestly surprised how long it. I was surprised how long it took.
And that doesn't surprise me at all.
It lasted like a day, and I was expecting like an hour.
Well, we had to give it time.
I saw something interesting too, like with the PS4 and the Xbox, like the recent fixes with the Xbox, like the Amazon and like other online ordering sites, like those have like doubled what a normal Black Friday sale would be in just online pre-orders.
Yeah, Amazon's going to be raking in a lot of money on Black Friday, or whenever the system gets out. They're looking to increase their profit by about 4,000%. So, moving right along. Well, before I go to Nintendo, so overall, what did we think of Sony's offerings?
I heard buzzes after Sony's conference that Sony won, E3. That was the
A
buzz
lot
I
of that
got
also
all
had to
over. Was like Sony just won E3.
Well, a lot of why Sony was perceived to have quote won E3 was because of the DRM stuff from Microsoft was still in effect at that point, whereas Sony had none of it. So that was certainly part of why I would have considered them to be quote unquote the winners. But I mean, I think that just looking at it, I feel like there were more games that interested me from Sony. And the truth of the matter is, I got this generation, I bought all 3 systems, and honestly, I barely touch my Xbox. I mean, I find the controllers better for first-person shooters, and for everything else, I just feel way more comfortable with Sony's controller or with the Wave or Wii remote. So I think that they had a pretty good showing, but I still don't feel like any of the big three, really like blew me away.
Yeah, I mean, so far, we haven't gotten to Nintendo yet, but Sony definitely, I think, learned from its mistakes on its from the PS3 reveal, and I think they're looking to make a pretty good run of it.
I wholeheartedly agree, and not for nothing, they also have a very diverse catalog that's coming up. Like, there's a little bit of everything for everybody. There's some sports games. There's some first-person shooters. There's some fantasy games. There's sequels. There's new stuff. I mean, and what more can you ask for? I mean, that was originally what made me a PlayStation fan back in the PS1 and PS2 days. Is that there was a huge library. There was a little bit of everything that I could sample, and that's one of the things that I feel like left in more current generations is that every console kind of had a very distinct niche. So you had to know exactly what your style of gameplay and what your favorite genres were before making that decision. And it's nice to be able to, entertain that idea of buying a console and being able to take a little bit of each piece of the buffet.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyone else have any last words on Sony before we jump to the big N?
Yeah, it's not just that the PS4 has a larger library. It's just that I think that the PS4 hit a lot of right notes. Like, they straight up addressed the concern that, hey, there's going to be DRM system. No, there isn't. Well, what about the price point? It's $400. And what about all these games? Well, we have all these games. Well, what indie developers? How are you supporting them? Well, here's all the indie developers on the stage saying we got 8 games for the PS4. Like, any concern that the community had about Sony's outgoing, they addressed right away at the conference.
Here's my one last question I will put to you guys before we jump to Nintendo. The fact that there's no backwards compatibility on the PS4, do you think that's going to hurt it?
I don't think it'll help.
I think people have given. Yeah, I don't. I think people are slowly realizing that that's getting harder and harder, just because of the logistics of the hardware, and people are accepting it because, it was like the PS3 was that intermediate stage of some things work, some things don't. So I think people are getting a bit more accepting of that.
I don't think they're accepting of it. I think they're more being able to put up with it because they're keeping their older systems in working shape. Like, the backwards compatibility doesn't, the lack of it, I understand why it doesn't, because the architecture and the hardware is just radically different from the PS3, but I think they will need to at least figure out some way to emulate the PS3 in some fashion, at least for the PlayStation Network's online store, just so that we can get some PS3 titles, like the major ones, like the Infamouses and the God of Wars and all that stuff, on your PS4.
Ben, you were saying?
See, I don't agree with the mentality behind it or the fact that it's going away. I think that there's a clear movement in my mind that they want to shift more towards these HD re-releases, because then they can sell them to you at a better price, and then they can make you go out and buy the new system if you want to have more stuff. I think that it's a clear effort by them to specifically not design the systems to be backwards compatible, because there's not really a benefit to it. I think that it's not so much, we need to make these systems this way so that causes us to have to lose backwards compatibility. It's we're choosing to build these systems this way oh, and an unexpected benefit for us, the game developers, is that you lose backwards compatibility. I think that it just, I mean, because think about it this way. If you, let's say you physically only have room to connect 2 systems to your television, you can have, you know, if you have a PlayStation 4 that doesn't play games that the PlayStation 3 did, and you can then, you then have to keep the PlayStation 3 hooked up and the PlayStation 4 hooked up, versus if you had a PS4 that did everything, you might be tempted to sell that PS3 and use the money towards, say, an Xbox. You know, I don't know if that's exactly specifically their thinking, but I think that it's a cost-cutting measure. I think that it's a way to just sell us extra games. I don't think that it's, you know, it's not a question of technical impossibility, and it's not a question of we had to do it this way. It's a question of we chose to do it this way, knowing that this is one of the results that would happen. So I don't like it. I don't like the trend that they're moving away from that, because, and this also tied into the DRM stuff. I feel like as a culture, we're getting more accepting of the companies kind of doing stuff that doesn't really help us, and still saying thank you for it. So I'm really angry. I mean, I'm happy when Nintendo started pulling GameCube support out of the Wii and then not putting it into the Wii U. It becomes very obvious to me that it's more and more a way of finding some path that they can resell us games again and again and again, rather than letting us just keep the original copy and have that be that.
Yeah. Though I will say this though, I'd rather it be make a decision out of the gate not to have it, versus like the PS3 where it's like, oh, some games work, some don't, and that weird mixed bag like that. To have it clear cut out of the gate, I think makes it at least a little bit more palatable.
I can understand that, but I'm saying, like, I don't. Yeah. It's better that they're not flip flopping, I guess, but I don't agree with the decision in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then, of course, then I ended up doing what I usually do, is those systems don't get put away. Like, all right, I still have the games, I still have the ability to play them.
But that's the problem. Hardware doesn't last forever. You know, I mean, that's the thing. Look at, you know, the stupid thing to me about Microsoft and the Xbox One not having backwards compatibility is, what was the failure rate on the Xbox 360 when it first came out? I mean,
25-30% at least.
I mean, the failure rate was absurd. So the hardware wasn't really. It's not just a question of, oh, well, I'm going to keep this and it's going to work forever. Well, it doesn't work that way. You know, technology breaks down, cars break down, refrigerators break down. Everything that has moving parts, that has working parts and electricity flowing through it will eventually stop working. It's not just a question of, you know, I need to just keep this thing and it'll work forever. It's not a book. It's not going to work that way. So that's where I really have a problem with dropping support for backwards compatibility, is you're going to get cut off. And then your only option is these HD re-releases. And let's not forget, because of licensing issues or just general other problems, not every game is going to get remade. You're going to lose access to some stuff that you may really enjoy playing.
Very true.
Like, Brian, look at the Twin Snakes. Do you think there's any chance that game ever gets remade? For anybody? No, because Silicon Knights no longer exists, and even if they did, it's a huge licensing rights issue between whoever bought whatever's left of Silicon Knights' stuff, between Nintendo, between, you know, Konami. I mean, it would just be it'd just be this ridiculous battle that will never happen. So if you ever want to play that game again, you need a functional GameCube or a functional Wii. And good luck trying to find an official Nintendo controller for the GameCube at this point, or buying a new Wii that actually can support GameCube games. It's something that's going to be cut off. So that's really why I have an issue with this mentality of losing backwards compatibility isn't a big deal. It is a big deal. It should be there.
I agree. We've come to expect it, and we're going back to the nope. You need all these consoles to be able to play all these old games. So
that's why emulators and, you know, cracked memory cards and all that stuff exist, because then, you know, gamers who are capable of doing that are like, all right, well then I'll make this last myself.
Yeah, but then that's not legal. And then
it's not but I never said anything about legality, but I'm just saying, like, you know, since the companies are doing this, they, you know, that's just the end result of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that went on for longer than I expected. Good discussion, sir. So we're going to move on to the last major group. We're going to move on to Nintendo. who didn't have an actual live press conference. They did a Nintendo Direct. And so I caught it after it aired, because I think it aired here like at 10 a.m. And on weekdays, I'm not up at 10 a.m. It's just a thing.
You poor baby.
I know. It's like I'm reverting back to my college night owl days. It's really interesting. I love how Nintendo came right out and said, yes, we know that the Wii U is selling poorly, but we also know the reason why. We haven't made any games for it.
I'm
love...
always... It's weird to have them admit that out of the gate, because it always feels like every E3 or every time it's like, oh, let's talk about how Nintendo's going to fail and being a crash of smoke, and they hold on.
They do, and I mentioned that. I mentioned that on Facebook, and then to my friends repeatedly. I said, ever since Nintendo moved on from the Super Nintendo, there has always been a litany of Nintendo's doomed articles, and I'm just like, guys, can we change the subject? Because now it's, Nintendo refuses to put their games out on smartphones and tablets, therefore they're fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree that they would make more money that way, but if that's not what they want to do as a company, then they're not required to do it.
I've always admired Nintendo for basically saying, you know what? Let Sony and Microsoft fight amongst themselves. We're going to do our own thing.
Yeah, and it's succeeded surprisingly well. I mean, I always say, they mocked the Wii controller, and then next thing you know, we've got Kinect and PlayStation Move.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The PlayStation Snow Cone. That's right. That was
yeah.
So, basically, I saw the Nintendo Direct, and Iwata looks cute in a buttoned-up business suit, trying to speak in as best broken English as he possibly can.
That was kind of adorable.
It wasn't that bad, to be fair.
I know. It
was fine.
It was cute, though. And, he opens up by bowing to the audience. It was just like, aw. How precious. So the first game they showed up was for the 3DS. They started with Pokemon X and Y. And I don't play Pokemon anymore. I beat Red, Blue, Silver, and Yellow and decided I had enough.
Yeah, it's reached that critical mass. Like, I noticed, like, I played the first generation, and then when they did the re-release of Soul Silver, I finally, I got that, and it's such a mixed bag, because on one hand, yeah, it's fun if you want to keep that grinding and stuff, but the whole I'd like to get everything mentality, it's just like, it's almost a chore now.
Well, I mean, and Doug, you're a big Pokemon fan, so...
I'm a big fan of the first generation, that's about it.
That's about it. After 151, fuck off.
Yeah.
So, Pokemon X and Y, I saw the trailers for, and I'm just like, okay, it's another Pokemon game. But now they've added new features, like you can pet and feed your Pokemon.
As my friend said, they've added the Tamagotchi approach.
Yes, yes, it's the Gigapet on your 3DS.
Yeah, or even like Nintendogs in a way. It's like you can nurture your Pokemon.
You know what's still very surprising, and I'm still floored by the fact that there are so many people our age who are still huge fans of the franchise. I'm like, wow.
That's what came out during, back during Sandy in my apartment, and we didn't have power, and or before the power outages went out. The guys in my apartment charged up, their old consoles and played Pokemon for like 3 days straight.
I was just like, holy shit, this is still popular? But apparently it is. And so Pokemon X and Y, so we've run out of colors, we've run out of elements, we've run out of
dimensions.
We've run out of gems, so now we're on algebraic notation. It'll be Pokemon N factorial and cosine will be the next two.
The next step's the Greek letters. It'll be, like Pokemon Sigma, Pokemon Sigma.
Yeah, that'll be next. So, Smash Brothers.
OMG, 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 OMG.
Yeah. So I once again, I'm at a PortCon Maine this weekend. I have already seen a bloody Villager and Wii Fit Trainer cosplay.
Yeah, the Villager seems to be getting an awful lot of. I wouldn't call it love because people seem to be terrified of him, but
I've never played Animal Crossing.
press.
Yeah.
It is kind of an odd, I mean, I understand it. It is part of, Nintendo's canon. It was just kind of like huh? That's exactly what I
the Villager is a little creepy, but I think the bigger thing here is the fact that they have Mega Man.
Yes,
too.
that was when my social media blew up. The Mega Man.
I may have squealed a little bit at that reveal, especially because they chose music from Mega Man 2.
Yeah, they chose Mega Man 2, and the intro music was Mega Man 2, so and the stage intro, so.
So when the Mega Man reveal was when everybody shit themselves, or had a collective orgasm. Take your pick.
Or both.
Or both. But I saw, and Smash Brothers is probably going to be the game that sells a bunch of Wii U's alone because.
Don't forget 3DS because it is a cross-platform game.
That's right. It is also being made available.
It is, but it isn't. You're not going to be able to play against each other.
Oh, that sucks. Still, the fact that you have portable Super Smash Brothers is pretty relevant.
That does seem weird that you can't play against each other.
Well, they can't play against each other because they use different stages. Like they specifically are designing the Wii version to have stages that are based on like home console games, and they're designing the 3DS version to have stages that are based on portable levels, portable games. So you have the like one of the levels they showed off in for the 3DS version was based on Spirit Trackers, specifically as being for the 3DS version. So the characters are all going to be the same, and there's going to be some way that you can customize characters and move them between versions, but they're not going to be able to play cross-platform play.
That makes sense.
So you can basically take your character with you on the go.
Right, but you're still playing a different level, and that kind of actually ruined some of the appeal for me because I was really hoping that they were going to do it in such a way that it would be true cross-platform play instead of none, which is really what they're offering.
Yeah. As I don't own a 3DS, that really doesn't matter to me. But obviously there are many people.
Yeah. Personally, I will be getting a 3DS eventually, just because of the fact that Shin Megami Tensei 4 is on the 3DS.
Yes, there is that. So Smash Brothers. I mean, I already know people who don't have a Wii U. I know many people who don't have a Wii U. Or are going to get the Wii U now, just on this game alone. So.
Yeah, well, it's typical Nintendo. It's the party games you play with your friends.
So,
and Smash Brothers is one of the ultimate ones for that.
Yes, and another multiplayer party, Mario Kart 8.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I have always been a fan of the Mario Kart series. I really just hope that they tone down the blue shell frequency. That's all I ask because there was a joke I made to somebody. I said the blue shell is Mario Kart's version of socialism, and I mean in Mario Kart Wii specifically, no one can be in first place for more than 10 seconds without getting at least 2 blue shells thrown at them.
Yeah, the Wii version really did start feeling like it's like the typical this computer cheats. It stopped being fun after a point. But we'll see how it goes. Did they announce any new characters or anything for the new Mario Kart?
None that I know of as of yet.
Not that I noticed.
Mm.
Alrighty, well, we say farewell to Ben. He had real life happen, so he has dropped out. So we thank Ben for his contribution to this episode, and so now we press forward with the remaining panel. So Mario Kart 8, when I looked at it, I'm like, ooh, you can race upside down
and underwater.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm looking at all this and I'm going, oh God, if this is how they're going, what the hell does Rainbow Road look like? Oh dear God, what does Rainbow Road look like in this game?
It's just that the console just stands up and just punches you.
Yeah.
Like for all
I
those
feel like for
times-
Rainbow Road, like there's gonna be one section of it where it's just like one long straightaway. Only it's not so much a straightaway as it is you driving up or down out of the earth and into space.
So I have no idea. So look,
See, if you ever wanted to play Mario Kart on LSD, that'll be
it.
that'll be
Oh.
your experience.
They put out a trailer which looked very interesting, especially since I've never played any of the games in this franchise. They put out a Bayonetta 2 trailer.
Which
Yeah.
is
Bayonetta previously released on a Nintendo console. I thought it was a Sony exclusive.
Bayonetta 1 is 360 and PS3.
Oh, okay, so it was both
Yeah.
those consoles. But yeah,
But
like,
Bayonetta 2 is a Wii U exclusive.
Yeah, and that's just mind-boggling.
Now, I'd never played Bayonetta before, and then after I saw the trailer, I'm like, oh, this is basically a Devil May Cry, but with a female protagonist.
basically, only it's a bit more sexualized when it was on the Xbox 360 and the PS3, which is why I'm surprised that it's now a Wii U exclusive.
well, of course, we have a female protagonist. Of course, it needs to be sexual.
Of course.
No, I mean like it I don't know if you played the original Bayonetta, but like I did the demo of it, and like instead of it being combos, they're called like climaxes or something like that.
Oh God!
And she gets increasingly
Louder?
loud and vocal with some of her moves, and it's very suggestive
And then,
with some of those moves.
and then when you finally reach the max combo, just a white something splashes on your screen and it's all over. But
well, it's black, but yes.
ew. So Bayonetta 2 looked interesting, and then we get to they also showed a trailer for The Wonderful 101, which kind of looks a bit like Pikmin.
It's like action Pikmin, I guess.
Pikmin action.
I just imagine like
Men of
all these-
action. Well, not men, but Pikmin of action or something like that.
I'm just imagining Pikmin in like armor with Uzis. Like,
So The Wonderful 101, and of course classic Super Mario 3D World, in which Mario gets a new power-up. He can become Cat Mario.
that's so Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw like because I'm guessing this was probably for Super Mario 3D World, but I saw a lot of footage from the press conferences of people wearing kitten ears and paws. Was that
Yeah.
from that?
Yeah,
3D World.
yeah, it was.
It was just I was like, that's cheaty.
Japan! Oh, Japan!
Exactly. It was one of those, Japan.
I did like how for Super Mario 3D World they did mention like there's going to be some carryover from Super Mario 2 with the various abilities.
With the multiplayer. The multiplayer you can play as Luigi, Peach, Mario, and Toad, and they have their abilities from Super Mario Brothers 2.
That's what I thought, because it is
Yep.
the original lineup, so...
Yep, they retain their
Donating
abilities.
Peach.
They retain their abilities from Super Mario Brothers 2, which I thought was interesting.
It also means Peach is going to be the most broken of the four because she can float.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh well.
But I definitely did hear in the trailer, like, when Mario was in his cat mode, he definitely meowed a couple times, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
He went
I-
meow.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
meowed.
How weird is that to hear, like, Mario meow?
Japan.
Yeah.
That's all the explanation you need. Japan. That's all. So, a new Donkey Kong Country game, Tropical Freeze, on which you can actually have Dixie and Diddy as playable. So,
Dixie hasn't been around for a while, has she?
no, she hasn't. No, she hasn't. And I love Donkey Kong Country, so I am making my way through Donkey Kong Country Returns. So,
I gotta say, like, just in what we've gone through in the Nintendo lineup so far, it's almost like what we were saying about how, like, they were like, we didn't make any games, so this year we're gonna bring all the hits. It's like Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, Super Mario, Donkey Kong. It's like,
Nintendo's the franchise machine.
Yeah.
It is, and
Keep in mind too that the Zelda game they announced is not a new one. It is a Wind Waker HD remake update thingy.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
the Wind Waker HD, but I still have the original, so that's not on my radar. We have the 3DS, Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds.
Which basically remake of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
No. It's a completely new game.
Is it new? From what I saw, it looked like a remake of Link to the Past.
All right, well, Doug,
It's,
explain.
It's a sequel to Link to the Past, but there's definitely some stuff that is definitely new. Like you can see him go like he becomes like a painting on a wall, so he can like move around a wall, and like that ability looks so cool. Like you basically make yourself 2D to get like through some obstacles and things like that. That's one mechanic I saw right away, and this is the game that has me hoping we're going to see a special 3DS XL for Zelda, because that is the one thing I want more than anything. Because the 3DS, I didn't get the Ocarina one because it's just too small for me. I want a Zelda branded 3DS XL, and I will get the 3DS for this game. And if they have a Zelda exclusive, they have my money, no question.
Yeah, they would. It'll be in the next issue of Nintendo Power. No, it's gone.
Ow. Too soon.
Too soon. Too soon. All right, fine. Moving on. Then they've got they have Wii Party U, which basically looks like Mario Party except using Mii characters.
that's what I thought when
Yeah.
I looked at it.
Yeah.
It is pretty much just Mario Party, right?
Yeah. Then they have this called Art Academy. I didn't know people were making art on their Wii U's.
Yeah, it's actually not. I've heard my artist friends talking about this. Let me put my artist pen on for a second, or in my hand for a second. But like, the idea is behind the Art Academy is basically like we didn't know that people were making so much art on the Wii U, so we're gonna have you guys pay us to get colors and other like items that mimic real life items. For example, they mentioned pastels and colored pencils. I suspect they'll be doing paints of some kind and charcoals too.
I'm like, all right, that's cool. I mean, people are probably using the Wii U tablet as a drawing tablet. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah, that's what they're using it for.
cool. Then another game that piqued my interest, the untitled Xeno Project.
Yeah, that looks
Yeah,
beautiful.
I'm like, oh, Monolith Soft is making a Xeno something. Is it a Xenoblade Chronicles sequel? It doesn't have a name.
This is my speculation. I'm thinking it's going to be a Xenogears remake.
Ooh. And hopefully, well, they've showed it now at E3, so which means we won't be begging for it to be released over here. So that looked very interesting. Let's see, we have obviously Pikmin 3. And then they showed off a litany of third-party and indie games. A lot of the third-party games were already mentioned for Microsoft and Sony. Like I said, Assassin's Creed 4, Batman Arkham Origins, Rayman Legends. Ron, you mentioned Shin Megami Tensei 4, which you're all excited about.
Yeah, I'll be getting a 3DS for that most likely.
Watch Dogs is getting a Wii U release.
Yay.
Not surprising.
Not surprising. We've got a new Scribblenauts game.
Which is kind of perfect for the Wii U.
Yes, Disney Infinity and Disney's Planes.
Disney's Planes? What the heck is that?
It looks like a racer with planes.
Why didn't they just do it with cars?
I don't know.
I don't know. It just seems kind of bizarre
It's
to
called
me.
Disney's Planes. And now Ron has real life to tend to. He may be back. So now, and then there were 3. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm still here. Don't worry.
That's okay. We got.
I'm not going anywhere.
Skylanders Swap Force. Just Dance 2004. I already mentioned that. Deus Ex Human Revolution Director's Cut. Never played any of the Deus Ex.
Yeah. They gotta add the director's cut to make it at least interesting to the people that already played it.
Yeah. And Sonic, they trot Sonic out. Hasn't he been abused enough? Sonic Lost World is getting a Wii U and a 3DS release.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to the Scribblenauts Unmasked thing, though.
Yep.
It's interesting, as you're seeing the DC Comics bit to it. It's interesting that you're seeing the more and more of these, comic book hero characters and stuff getting their due for decent video games like Injustice and stuff. And I think this is they're going the opposite direction. Okay, let's add the all ages thing. So I'm very curious to see how this one folds out. I mean, I think as just kind of a passing fan of superhero comics, I want to see what happens with this.
They then put out, they then showed off indie games. Oddworld New and Tasty is also going to is getting a Wii U release. One of my friends was so ecstatic. There's a new DuckTales game.
There's a lot of buzz about that.
DuckTales
I have a few friends
Remastered.
who are really excited about that.
The fact that it makes me it makes me incredibly happy because it was DuckTales, the NES game, it was just one of those games that nobody thinks of as a pinnacle game or something that changed the game, but it's one of those games that everybody you knew had played it.
Like another Disney game, Cast of Illusion. That was
yeah. So and it looks like they're keeping the entire setup. It's just redone. Once again to bring up Maverick Hunter X. It's the same style, just brand new sprites and everything like that.
Let's see, Ballpoint.
And that's
keep going.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying that's also saying something because Lord knows a lot of games that are based off of previous media, off of movies and television. Let's face it, 9 times out of 10 it sucks. But DuckTales was one of those games that was oh wait, this is actually good. Like Aladdin, the game for Sega Genesis, was like that too, where it was this is a good game. Surprisingly, this is a good game.
How did this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the hell happened? A licensed game is good?
Shouldn't I have written this off?
What the hell happened here?
Versus you look at another recent tie-in game, the one they made for the Amazing Spider-Man movie. The only good thing about that was one of the DLC you could play as web-swinging Stan Lee, and that was about the only redeeming quality of that game.
I would play it just for that reason. I'm not gonna lie.
That is basically why I bought that game.
Other indie games, they have Ballpoint Universe, Cloudberry Kingdom, Coaster Crazy Deluxe, which kind of looks like Roller Coaster Tycoon, Dungeons & Dragons Chronicles of Mystara, a D&D game for the Wii U. Interesting. Scram Kitty and His Buddy on Rails, which sounds like a horrible Bubsy spin-off.
Oh. Wow, I haven't thought of that game in forever.
Spin the Bottle, Bumpy's Party. What?
What? Is that
Is that an adult game?
Is that Leisure Suit Larry or something?
I have no idea.
That sounds terrible. Well, it could be fine. I shouldn't judge, but title alone's a little off-putting.
Yeah, Mutant Muds Deluxe, Shovel Knight, and this game's already out on the 360. A World of Keflings.
What are Keplings?
I have no idea. It came default on my 360. I haven't touched it. I have no idea what it is. So that is Nintendo's offering, and the one thing that looking at Nintendo's upcoming lineup, now I want the Wii U. I've been waiting.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for reasons to buy the system. Now I have it.
The one thing I'm gonna get one. I'll get a Wii U eventually. I think it's gonna be like what happened with my Wii. Is I'm not gonna get as many games in it as my PlayStation, but the games, for the most part, the games I'm gonna get, I'm really going to enjoy.
Yes.
I mean, there's only one exception for like games that I didn't care for, and that was more for its story than its gameplay, and that's Metroid Other M.
I think a lot of people though complained about that.
Yeah, but I think all in all, like I said, it was the past generation. The PlayStation had the quantity of games, but Nintendo had the quality.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, now looking at all of these offerings, I'm really excited for the Wii U and for the PS4. I still am of the opinion, even with Microsoft's reversal now on its DRM and its used game policies, I'm still of the opinion that Microsoft can go die in a fire. And
yeah, I have never owned an Xbox, and this just kind of makes me feel like, yeah, well, I still have no reason to. And I mean, I knew they were going to reverse it as soon as Sony made that sharing video thing.
And also when the news broke that Amazon blew through its entire stock of PS4 pre-orders.
Yeah, I think they're going to still be able to hang on, because still it's the systems where it's, you go for the system that has the games you want. And here's the weird area, I think, is okay, the diehard gamers are the ones who really know a lot about looking up to games and stuff like that, and know what DRM and everything like that. And then you have like kind of the casual gamer crowd. It's like, yeah, I get my Xbox for Madden and Halo and things like that. How much do they really know about, DRM and everything like that? So
yeah, I mean, obviously there's definitely a clear delineation there. I mean, shockingly, I buy a video game system to play video games on. I don't want to surprise anybody. I don't use it to watch TV or.
The one weird thing with this console generation to think about, though, is I look back in the past, and it's like, well, I bought the PlayStation 2 partially because I needed a DVD player. I bought the PS3 because I needed a Blu-ray player. There's nothing new like that in this generation.
Well, if you want a Betamax player, then no.
That's true. Consoles have become just overall media boxes. I mean,
yes,
our 360 is just as much practically like a second cable box as it is, if not more. Like, I know between like the three of us in our apartment, like, we watch a lot of TV on it and only have so much time to game on it.
And in terms of actual hardware, they're becoming so identical now. It's the same thing with, a Microsoft computer and an Apple computer. The parts inside are pretty much identical. The difference is in the operating system now.
Yep.
That's very true.
And we're reaching that point now with video game consoles. So now what's different now, what has to differentiate is how the games are presented. I mean, I think right now, after seeing what everybody's offered at E3, I think Sony was the runaway winner. If there had to be a winner given, I think Sony was the runaway winner. They hit on all of the right notes. And I think Nintendo did well. Nintendo gave Nintendo fans reason to believe again. And Microsoft was okay. Let me after E3, and this was before the DRM reversal. I saw a lot of GIFs on Tumblr, basically showing how Sony and Nintendo just kind of beats up Microsoft in a back alley.
Yeah, the best one I saw was it was a clip of a guy just riding a bike labeled Nintendo, and you see a cab about to hit him, labeled Microsoft, and then out of nowhere, an SUV labeled Sony takes out the cab, and the bike just keeps going. That's to me that's perfect, because it's like that's always been Nintendo. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna do what we want.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah, all right, we'll let you guys fight it out. Talk amongst yourselves. It's that sort of thing. So I'm really excited for Nintendo and Sony. Microsoft, I mean, the thing is, this is now Sony's been handed. I've said this. Sony's been given a gift because of all of the ways Microsoft has hanged itself.
Mm-hmm.
But it also means it's now their generation to fuck up.
It's true.
Yeah.
They're enjoying the resurgence of redemption. Now they got to keep that going.
They got to keep that going, and I still maintain that out of the next console generation, the dark horse is going to be the Ouya.
It's interesting to see though how so much of it is them, like, you're seeing all this attention to the indie games now, and I think we're getting closer and closer to find there's going to be another contender on the stage.
I hope so. I mean, indie games. In a few episodes from now, we're going to devote some time to indie games. It might end up being 2 episodes to indie games, because they are the up and comers, and they deserve a forum.
Yep.
So do we have any last thoughts on this year's E3, or have we exhausted it?
I think this year's E3 was a little bit.
Hey, he came back!
Yeah, I think get that last shot in. I think that this year's E3 was better well received than last year's, or like even the year before, just because like I think people are ready for a new console generation. Just, like, even like they're finally ready, and I think the hardware developers are finally ready for one too. And I feel like there's enough support too with the software, with like the publishers and developers, both from your AAA studios and your indie developers, that are gonna be like, okay, I think we're ready to see what the new stuff can give us. Like, we want to see, I mean, not just improve visuals, but like, what are the tricks and things that we can do with these like new engines, like these new graphics processors, and can we still have this social media interaction that we're getting increasingly desirable of?
I think so. I think it's about we're ready for it, and I think we're gonna have a good holiday season. To be perfectly honest, I think so. I think we're shaping up to get some good ones. We'll see how long this goes for.
It's definitely going to be an exciting season, though, for an exciting holiday season for gamers. We got a lot to get ready for.
Yes, we do.
It's the typical November. Everything comes out at that point.
Yep, right around my birthday, where I can't buy myself anything because of an April-imposed cutoff.
Yeah, I mean, as for game itself too, like the thing that caught my eye was like, I mean, Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, Watch Dogs still, Transistor for the indies, from the indie side. I'm also would like to see what Destiny does, just because like I think it's going to be similar to my quickest explanation for it is Guild Wars meets Halo. And I think that could work pretty well.
We shall find out. I mean, there are now games I'm certainly looking forward to. It now means I've got to start saving up cash for consoles. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Oh, hell. Oh, hell. So. But I think this year's E3 was definitely great. Much better than last year's, where everyone was like, New console? New console, please? No? Oh. So, no blue balls on the part of the gaming press this time around. Everyone had an orgy of good news. So. We think that's it? Any final words?
I got nothing.
You got nothing. All right. I hear silence on the other end. So, if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say about this episode or any other episode, or you want to get onto a future recording of downloadable content, you can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/downloadable content, at Twitter at DLContent. You can email dlcontent1@gmail.com. This episode, like every other episode, is available on iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher. So a billion different ways you can download, listen to episodes, and get in touch with us. We'd love to hear your feedback. What do you make of E3? With that in mind, I'd like to thank Ron, Shanna, Doug, and Ben for their wonderful contributions to this episode. Have a good one, everybody!